there is a serious confirmed tornado threat in this area, and encourage them to head to their safe place. Again, lowest level of your house, basement if you have one, interior room, away from windows. That's the main threat area. Let's, Brian, let's take a quick jump back up into the heart of the metro area where some of the strongest straight line winds are now occurring. We had a tornado warning earlier for parts of DeKalb and Fulton County. The tornadic part of that storm has dissipated, but damaging straight line winds. And here in North DeKalb, got a report of 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts at DeKalb Peachtree Airport. As this is tracking towards the east, trees down, likely to occur along this line of thunderstorms. So in Gwinnett County and DeKalb County, heads up in Rockdale, Walton counties, headed in your general direction. Lilburn now in a minute or less. Stone Mountain about 3 minutes from you. Lawrenceville, 11 minutes. Decula about the same time. Grayson in 12 minutes. Again, this is the time of arrival, not of the rain, but of the strongest winds, the potential for those damaging wind gusts as it tracks towards the north and east. Got a report of a measurement of 60-mile-an-hour winds at DeKalb Peachtree Airport. Just got another report of a 52-knot wind gust there. The conversion is 1.15 miles an hour, so that's going to put it right around 60 miles an hour. All right, Brian, we've got a tornado warning now for Meriwether, Pike, Spalding County until 4:45. That's a continuation of this tornado warning we have been tracking all the way back into Alabama, across Troop and Hurd, and now it's been canceled for Hurd County, continues now in Meriwether County and off towards the east. So here we are in Pike and Spalding counties under that tornado warning as well. It's an extension of this same storm, moving at about 50 miles an hour, so tornado-producing storm near Worcester, northeast of Greenville. So it's this area right here. We've been tracking this for over an hour. Tornado apparently on the ground. We've seen debris signature. What we're looking at here is the strong velocity, the rotating winds, which helps us highlight and pinpoint the exact location of those damaging winds. Now, just south of Rockmart, that's where the tornado is occurring. Alps, headed towards you. Alvaton, Carmel, Oakland, you're in the path of this tornado. You don't need to panic. You've got a couple of minutes, but you need to go right now to your safe place if you're in the path of this tornado. Where you see all of this red, that's rain. Where you see this spot, almost circle of yellow and green, and we saw blue earlier, that's a sign of lofted debris. Brian, let's go back in time and see how this has changed over the last few minutes, that lofted debris signature, because I believe it was a little more intense a few minutes ago, but let's confirm that as we go back on the timeline there. Yeah, you could see that blue there. So that was an indication of that was a significant debris signature. And we're seeing that actually in the last few minutes weaken a little bit, Brian.
We are. Actually, we first started to track it almost a half an hour ago. This was a second tornado that developed. One initially moved into Hurd in Troop County, North Troop County. It weakened. The second one took over just to the south of LaGrange. And really, Brad, going back to about 3:15 or so almost 45 minutes now, it's held that debris signature, but again, a little less prominent now on radar. Hopefully a sign that this storm is weakening. But still, again, that extension now of the tornado warning to the east. Yeah, so that new tornado warning for this same storm in effect until 4:45. So let's do some tracks on it. Let's give the folks that are in the path of this storm that minute-by-minute heads up. So there's the rotation where the tornado is occurring. It's in eastern parts of Meriwether County, and it's going to be impacting Spalding County and parts of Pike County over the next few minutes. So that's going to bring it into Rio and Spalding County in about 23 minutes. Before it gets there, it gets to Hallenville in 13 minutes. That's right there northwest of Zebulon in Pike County. There's Williamson on the Pike and Spalding County line, just about 21 minutes away from you. So this is a long track tornado. This has been going on for a while, part of a larger storm system that's been going on for hours and hours. And this has been crossing we saw this tornado develop just south of LaGrange, and it crossed all the way through Troop
and Meriwether counties now. That's where it is now. It's going to continue across Meriwether County and not showing any signs of collapsing, although we did see that little minor indication of perhaps a little bit of weakening in the lofted debris. What we're looking at here is the tornado debris signature going back over the last hour or so, and you can see we're highlighting it here in parts of eastern Troup, western, and central Meriwether County, and that tornado debris threat, that means tornado touchdowns, that threat continues as it's moving towards the north and east. We've got a new severe thunderstorm warning. Harris, Lamar, Meriwether, Pike, Talbot, Taylor, and Upson counties. So that's here on the southern end of this line, just a huge swath of damaging straight line winds as well. And that's the case north as well, a huge swath of damaging straight line winds across the South Metro. So in addition to the tornado risk there to the south, we have damaging straight line wind risk, and that threat now extends from Coweta into Fayette, in Athens. You're going to get in on this. It's just a little longer to get there. So that strong straight line wind threat is headed there. We've had numerous reports of trees and power lines down, and I suspect we'll have more in the hours to come. Please send us your reports once this storm is safely passed, but do not go out in the storm to check out, see what's happened. Wait till the storm passes. None of this is worth risking your life over, and this has a serious life-threatening impact as these storms come through. What Brian's measuring here is winds at about 50 miles an hour. Now that's a few thousand feet above the ground as the radar beam is here in the parts of the northern and eastern metro, but nonetheless an indication of how powerful these strong winds are. Getting indication of now the cycling of the intensity of the tornado down to the south. What that means when we talk about cycling is you can imagine a tornado going through a cycle where it is very powerful, it briefly weakens, and then re-intensifies. So that's what we're looking at here. Perhaps we're seeing a little bit less of the bright green. That means a little bit less of the strong winds blowing towards the radar site. So we could be looking at not a break, but a potential down cycle in the intensity of this thunderstorm and the tornado potential there, as we're seeing a little bit of cycling between Worcester and Alvaton in this area. So what cycling implies, obviously, is that it's going to ramp up again. That's the expectation. It may continue to weaken. We're going to hope for that, but indications are that this is perhaps just a cycle where it goes from very intense, it becomes more, say, moderately intense, and then potential of strengthening once again. So that's the reason that tornado warning has been expanded into Pike and Spalding counties until 4:45. But this tornado had been confirmed on the ground, and we've already got some reports of some wind damage across the heart of the metro area and some reports of some tornado damage earlier as this was in Troup County. There's the lofted debris signature kind of fading away a little bit, so that's part of the cycling that I'm describing. And then up into the heart of the metro area, a severe thunderstorm warning continues. In fact, we've got a new severe thunderstorm warning, so let's go up there, Brian. This is for Barrow, Clark, Clayton, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Henry, Newton, Oconee, Rockdale, and Walton counties. Basically, everybody else, you're in on the action as well. Here's what the National Weather Service has done. Those are the folks that actually issue the warnings. They're saying this line of severe storms that we've been tracking is going to continue with its intensity as it spreads to the east. So it's just a huge area of potentially damaging straight line winds tracking to the east. Some of the cities along the path, moving to Lawrenceville, Lithonia, Snellville the next few minutes, off towards Houston in 9 minutes, Carl in 10, and many other towns and cities and neighborhoods along the path. In addition to these damaging winds, cloud to ground lightning strikes, we've seen over 70 just within the last 10 minutes within this line, but also earlier, we saw within this line of thunderstorms a tornado briefly develop around East Point. A tornado warning was issued, but then it fell apart very quickly as well. That tornado warning was canceled. So we've had some reports of some damage in the area. We'll go out and see exactly what occurred in the hours and days ahead. But nonetheless, it's a sign of, when we talk about the potential for tornadoes embedded within a larger line of straight line damaging winds, that's what we're talking about. We've got a line of storms that extends from northeast Georgia through the heart of the metro into the south metro. And anywhere along that line, we could see some tornadoes develop, and we have seen that now. We've been tracking that now over parts of eastern Meriwether County. I do want to point this out. If you're in the backside of this system, the threat has greatly diminished. The tornado risk really falling off behind this main line. But there are some isolated storms that are still ahead of the actual cold front into Alabama, and so we have a severe thunderstorm warning there. So we can't let our guard down completely once the line goes through, but things will be improving in the hours ahead. Brian, do you have any updates on that line as it comes through?
Yeah, the latest information, again, we continue to watch the storm down in Meriwether County, some cycling happening there, but the overwhelming reports we're seeing, the overwhelming number of reports of storm damage, from trees down to power lines down to hail reported in these storms, and wind gusts very common in that 45, 50, even 55 mile per hour range. So yes, we're on the air right now. We came on the air early as soon as those tornado warnings are issued, but whether you're under a tornado warning or not, you need to be in a place where you have the most shelter possible, where you have the most safety possible, because these are storms that, even with away from any tornadic circulations, any tornadoes that we're tracking, that possibility for wind gusts 50, 55, 60 miles per hour, certainly enough to bring down trees and power lines and cause a lot of damage, Brad. Again, several damage reports and many areas reporting damage, trees down, things like that, all across North Georgia and Metro Atlanta.
Yeah, unfortunately, Brian, we've got some new information. I've been watching the radar there with that tornado warning. So let's go down there. That rotation starting to weaken in the active tornado warning. So we're going to go down into northeastern Meriwether County and take a look at the storm, where it is. Let's look at the trends. Let's look at the rotation, the velocity mode there. We have this tornado warning. It's in effect for parts of Meriwether, Pike, and Spalding counties as it continues to track towards the north and east. But look at this rotation. You see the green and red, but you see how broad it is and disorganized. So he's going back here. So this is just a few minutes ago, and we saw a very tight rotation, and we're starting to see it kind of spread out, collapse. That's a sign that the rotation is weakening a little bit, and that correlates with that debris signature that we've been watching also diminish. So go back here to just before the top of the hour, a significant debris signature, that little circle of blue and green. And then as we started to see some weakening in the last few minutes, we've seen that lofted debris signature dissipate. We've seen the velocity signature dissipate as well, the rotation finally weakening with this. Now, the question that remains to be seen, and it's something we're not going to know until it happens, is will this be able to spin back up and produce additional tornado touchdowns, or does the weakening trend continue? For now, the tornado warning remains in effect for parts of Spalding and Pike counties, but at this moment, that tornado risk has weakened quite a bit as the storm is moving out of northeastern Meriwether and into northwestern Pike County. Watching some circulation tightening up in Clayton County now, west of Jonesboro. So let's go there. Could be looking at possible development of a new tornado within this larger line. As we mentioned, the risk of embedded tornadoes within the larger area. So there we are. In Clayton County, you see we had a lot of green. Those are strong straight line winds. And embedded within that, we've got a little rotation starting to develop there in Clayton County. Let's come in a little bit closer, Brian, and get a look at the location and not just the spot of where it is, that's obvious, but where it's headed. So a little rotation developing right over Jonesboro. So there's the interstate. There's I-75. There's Stockbridge. We're talking about just to the west of Stockbridge near Jonesboro, south of Morrow, southeast of Riverdale. This area could be looking at a powerful rotation developing, a possible tornado developing here. We don't have that yet, but I just want to give you a heads up. If you're near or along the path of this storm, you want to stay very intently listening and tuned in because a tornado may be developing. So here's an early heads up for you in Stockbridge, 9 minutes away. Flintlock, 11 minutes. Richardson, 18 minutes. Kellytown, 20. Velta, 27 minutes. This area where we're starting to see a little rotation develop, if it in fact does develop into a tornado, that's where it's headed. In fact, it looks like it is starting to make that transition now. And as we speak, a tornado warning has now been issued. So a tornado warning for Clayton, Henry, Newton, and Rockdale counties until 4:45 for this area that Brian and I are just highlighting where that rotation is developing. The thunderstorm with a possible tornado that's near Jonesboro. This one is moving northeast at 40 miles an hour. So let me give you a list of some of the cities and towns in the path, and then we'll do the deep dive in the track. So we're talking McDonough, Jonesboro, Stockbridge, Riverdale, Morrow, Lake Spivey, Magnet, Flippin, Richardson Park, Kellytown, Oak Hill, Eagles Landing. All of these towns and cities that we know across the South Metro, those areas that I just mentioned in the path of this developing tornado in Clayton County right now. So Clayton County, tornado warning. It includes not just Clayton, it's southwestern Rockdale, central Henry, central Clayton, and west central Newton counties until 4:45. We're going to get those added to the banner there at the bottom, but here's the tornado warning flashing in red. The yellow is the track that Brian just manually drew, pinpointing the location of the developing tornado and extrapolating it out as it's moving at about 40 miles an hour. That puts the tornado threat into Stockbridge in 6 minutes. Not a need to panic. You've got 6 minutes before it arrives. That's not a long time. You grab your family, your pet, and you head to the basement. Lowest level of your house, if you have one, basement, interior room, away from windows. Richardson, 14 minutes away from you. Kellytown, 17 minutes away. Velta, 23 minutes. So just get your bearings. There's downtown at the top of the screen. There's Riverdale. Here's Jonesboro. It's near and just to the east of Jonesboro, headed towards Stockbridge. So we're talking central Clayton, parts of Henry. Here's the southwestern and southern parts of Rockdale County and a little bit of Newton County under this tornado warning. We're going to come in close. The rotation here, where you see the red and green right around and along Walt Stevens Road, Chestnut Lake Estates. There's Stockbridge. I mentioned Lake Spivey. That's right there on the Clayton-Henry County line. And that rotation here near Jonesboro and just towards the east, tracking towards the east. There's a 75 and 675 split. And it looks like this possible tornado is going to be moving right over that area over the next few minutes. Here's a look at the base velocity, which includes the forward motion. Sometimes it kind of wipes out the wind speed, but it does give you a good look at the overall winds with this, and not just the rotation, but we're talking 60, 70, 73 mile an hour winds. So in addition to the tornado threat, the damaging straight line wind threat there as well. As this continues to track towards each, just getting a report of some wind damage near Fayetteville over the last 15 minutes, a little bit of debris and some damage there. So we're going to continue to watch that. Multiple trees down being reported in Troup County. The tornado threat has ended in Troup, but nonetheless, reports are going to be coming in after the storm comes on through. So unfortunately, this has been and continues to be a rough afternoon across the area and around Jonesboro and now to the east, the risk for damaging winds and possible tornado development. It's right about here. You see the green and the red? This is the area where we have the greatest risk of tornadoes developing. We don't have an indication of this being on the ground at the moment, but let me remind you, these develop in an instant, and so we're going to treat this as a tornado is occurring, although it may take a few minutes before this touches down, if it does at all. So south of Morrow, west of Stockbridge, that's the area that we're highlighting now. Again, if you're in Stockbridge, you need to seek shelter immediately. Again, lowest level of your house, a basement, if you have one, is best. Remember, tornadoes, as they travel across the ground, sometimes they skip around. If you've got topography, sometimes they won't dip into the low spots. And being in a basement below ground level means oftentimes that as a tornado comes through, even if it hits your house directly, it doesn't impact that lowest level or that basement as significantly as if you were higher up in the house. So that's number one. Number two, you want to get to an interior room because you want to put as many walls between you and the outside, between you and the tornado as possible. Additional walls gives you additional level of protection. And then you want to be away from windows for the obvious reason, because the broken flying glass can cut you, and that oftentimes is responsible for a lot of injury. So here we are looking now in southwestern parts of Spalding County. This is the rotation. that's been moving out of Meriwether County, also into northern and north central and northwestern Pike County. Tornado warning remains in effect there. We need to work on getting this tornado warning banner updated also to include folks in the control room if you're listening. So, okay, I'm being told, okay, we're switching back and forth. We're cycling through them. There's so many that they don't fit all at once. So that's what we'll watch there. Here's the rotation for the tornado warning there in the South Metro. Both tornado warnings are in the South Metro. This is the southernmost into parts of Pike and Spalding counties. And that's the confirmed tornado. That's why it's flashing in purple. And then the red is a radar indicated tornado. And that's why it's flashing in red. That tornado warning near Jonesboro and tracking towards the north and east. And then the line of severe storms extends to the north. Virtually this entire area being impacted under a severe thunderstorm warning, damaging straight line winds remain a possibility. Brian, let's come back in close over Jonesboro, Stockbridge area, those spots that are being impacted by this possible developing tornado. As we come in, you can see a whole lot of green here, not a whole lot of red, but we're watching a few spots on the backside of this where you can be seeing a little bit of rotation developing near the Stockbridge area. This is not a classic textbook powerful radar indication, but it is, especially in this environment with a history of multiple tornadoes through Alabama and Georgia this afternoon, something we need to watch very carefully. And so I would tell you, in Stockbridge, you need to seek shelter now, lowest level of your house, interior room, away from windows, as this is tracking towards the north and east. We'll be moving right across Clayton and Henry counties here over the next few minutes. That tornado warning includes southern parts of Rockdale and a western corner there of Newton County. Here's a storm tracker along the leading edge, or rather not the leading edge, but the rotating part of this storm where we have the greatest risk for tornado touchdowns. Moving into Stockbridge now, Velta in 17 minutes, Covington 28 minutes from you. Brian, we're starting to see, looks like on the backside there, maybe a little indication of some stronger rotation developing as the radar sweeps through and updates again. So we're seeing a little bit more of the red there on the backside. Let's come in close and see if in fact that is the case. Let's query some of these pixels.
Yeah, going to go ahead and do that query. Again, Storm Tracker 2 HD, able to sense the rain and pick up the rain. That sends a signal back to the radar and able to determine what direction it's moving. And when we see the rain moving in opposite directions, that's a sign of rotation and something we watch carefully in an environment like this. So over a very short distance, this is along North Henry Boulevard, right in Stockbridge. There's Flippin Road, Walt Stevens Road. So this is far north Henry County right now. We're seeing over the span of maybe about a half mile or less, about 50, 55, 60 miles per hour, what we call shear. That's the change in the wind direction over a short amount of time. Now, let me compare that to what we were watching a little while ago in Heard County and in Troup County and into Meriwether County. We were more toward 100 miles per hour or more. So, Brad, the rotation not as significant here, but we're going to watch this carefully, see if we get what's called a little bit of tightening up. This storm system, this rotating thunderstorm, is moving into an environment where there's the instability, there's the energy available to potentially intensify this as it moves into air where we haven't had much in the way of rain yet today. So we'll watch this carefully as it moves east. But Stockbridge, some rotation, some signs of rotation showing up on Storm Tracker 2 HD. That is why the tornado warning is in effect. So we'll zoom out the view here just a bit, Brad. I'm going to put the storm track back on. This is moving east and northeast at about 45 miles per hour or so. So basically, if you are in Stockbridge right now, maybe as far east as Covington and Porterdale, you need to be taking those tornado precautions right now. That lowest level, as many walls between you and the outside as possible to keep you safe from any potentially flying debris.
Yeah, and you mentioned this is moving into an environment conducive for some strengthening. Temperatures near 70 in the middle of January. Dew points have been rising in addition to the strong winds higher up in the atmosphere off the surface. Really, all the ingredients have come together for this severe weather outbreak across the area and multiple tornado warnings, and likely, by the time this is all said and done, multiple confirmed tornadoes. So we're tracking this rotation just west of Stockbridge now, headed that way. So if you're in Stockbridge, if you haven't already, you need now to seek shelter. If you have friends or family that live there, give them a call, send them a text, give them a heads up. Make sure they're aware that they are being threatened by this possible tornado in the Stockbridge area. But not just Stockbridge. It's these communities across Henry County as you go towards the east. So there's Mosley Road. There's the town of White House and Miller's Mill. That's Highway 151. if you live in this area, in these communities, in these neighborhoods, you need to seek shelter immediately. Here's Stockbridge. Here's Henry Boulevard, North Henry Boulevard, Highway 42. And that's East Atlanta Road. It's passing right on through this area, continuing to track towards the north and east. And now we got a tornado warning was canceled for Meriwether and Pike County. Let's take a wider view. Brian, let's just kind of reset the view for the folks that are now tuned in. Channel 2 Action News at 4. Let's give an overall view, and then we'll go through all of this because there's a lot going on. First off, the red on the map, tornado watch. That was issued earlier this afternoon, continues for all of Metro Atlanta. We're starting to see some counties drop from the watch into the northwest Georgia behind the line. This entire area moving through Metro Atlanta right now, producing not just very heavy rain, but damaging winds. You see look closely here, you see the yellow flashing, these kind of squares of flashing yellow. These are huge severe thunderstorm warnings that have been issued for large segments of these storms producing damaging straight line winds. That's a concern. We also have embedded within that the potential for tornadoes to spin up. And we saw that in a couple of different spots. We have some active tornado warnings now in the South Metro we've been tracking, and we'll get right back to it. I want to point out there was a tornado warning briefly that included Fulton and DeKalb County. It was detected near East Point. It spun up real quick, and then it collapsed right away. But that damaging straight line wind threat continues, and now that's marching across the Eastern Metro. In the South Metro now, we have some damage reports, and those will continue towards the south and east. That graphic, Brian, those were hand-plotted manual icons, by the way, on that storm.
Those are all the tornado damage reports and wind damage. Those icons that you saw, those are all of the reports of tornado damage and also wind damage across North Georgia.
So we'll continue to watch that. Go through that scene, Brian, because after the last event, we added some manual icons in addition to those that auto-plotted. So we're going to confirm that. As we do, we'll also come down here to the South Metro. So you see here around Spalding County and Griffin, that tornado warning continues in effect. It has been dropped now for Pike County. So Pike County has been canceled from the tornado warning. Troup County no longer, and Meriwether County no longer in a tornado warning, but it continues for Spalding County until 4:45. Out ahead of it, here into Lamar County, damaging straight line winds likely to be occurring. We have a severe thunderstorm warning there, and then this active tornado warning for this portion of the storm that's west of Griffin. Brian, let's do a close-up look here for this considerable damage potential for this tornado rotation near Griffin now. We've got this really fired up. Remember we talked about the cycling, how it was strong and then it weakened a little bit and we expected it would strengthen again. Well, that's what we're seeing here. So back to strengthening just west of Griffin in Spalding County. So if you're watching now in Griffin and the surrounding communities, you have a tornado warning in effect, and it's just minutes from moving into Griffin, this rotating part of the thunderstorm. You need to seek shelter or possible tornado touchdowns. So again, lowest level of your house, interior room, away from windows. This is the rotating part of the storm moving into the Griffin area. Now let's check for the potential, Brian, for some lofted debris in this area as well. Yep, we're seeing that as well. Looks like we've got the low correlation coefficient that is lined up in the area where the strong rotation is, so an indication of some lofted debris there near and to the west and northwest of Griffin. So a tornado likely occurring now in Spalding County in the Griffin area. Go to your lowest level at this moment if you're in the path of this storm. So we're talking about areas to the east of Griffin. You need to seek shelter immediately. Tornado damage likely occurring now near Griffin and Experiment, Highland Mills. There's Old Atlanta Road. Heads up along North 2nd Street. There's Hamel Road. Off towards the northeast, you saw Smoke Road. This tornado tracking to the northeast, moving into these communities and neighborhoods over the next few minutes. And so it's the same message that we've been giving through the afternoon. But if it's new to you because you're watching now from this area, here's what you need to know. Tornado touchdowns, likely we have a debris signature, and it's likely to produce additional tornado damage between Experiment and Griffin and off towards the north and east. So we have powerful rotation showing here. We're measuring on radar lofted debris. A tornado impacting Spalding County and Griffin and Experiment now and tracking to the north and east. Lowest level of your house, again, if you have a basement, best choice. Otherwise, ground floor. Interior room. Get as many walls between you and this tornado as possible, and stay away from windows because of the threat from broken glass. Oftentimes, an interior hallway, an interior closet, or a windowless bathroom, those are often your best choices. You have to decide for yourself what fits the bill best for your home, but lowest level interior room away from windows in that order. Here's a look at that rotation, now passing near and just to the north side of Griffin, moving towards Pleasant Grove, Walker Mill. Heads up for you, Tawallaga. If you're in these communities, you don't need to panic, but you need to immediately grab your family members and go to your safe space. I know there's a lot of times we have severe weather, and maybe you in Pleasant Grove haven't been impacted recently. This is the time you need to seek shelter. This is a significant tornado threat in the Griffin and Experiment areas, moving towards Pleasant Grove, moving towards Walker Mill, Steeles Mill, Tawallaga, and eventually, as it tracks towards the northeast, could be impacting Jenkinsville and Locust Grove, Jackson, Butts County. That's in the potential path for this storm as well as it tracks towards the north and east. Brian's doing a storm track here along the leading edge, moving between 40, 45 miles an hour into Pleasant Grove in 5 minutes, Jenkinsburg in 17, Jackson in 20, Stark in 27 minutes. That's how long you have before the tornadic portion of the storm is expected to arrive. Of course, you don't want to wait to the last minute. You want to get there now and grab your phone, grab an iPad, your television, turn it on, watch the live stream on your laptop, on the television in your basement. Watch us. We'll continue to take you through this. Again, no need to panic if you're prepared, and we're going to keep you prepared as this continues to track towards the north and east. Starting to move away from Griffin and Experiment and Highland Mills now. Tawallaga, Pleasant Grove, Walker Mill, you need to seek shelter immediately. This tornadic circulation, this tornado is moving through these communities right now. There's Amelia Road, there's Locust Grove Road. If these sound familiar to you because you live in the area or you have family and friends here, you need to let them know this tornado is threatening. They need to seek shelter immediately. Look at these wind speeds, 68, 57 miles an hour. But these 58-mile-an-hour winds are in the opposite direction. So we're talking just a few hundred yards apart right here where the green and red come together. But overall, in less than a mile or so, we're talking about very powerful winds blowing in one direction, nearly 60 miles an hour, and in the opposite direction, nearly 70 miles an hour. So you get the idea here. This is very powerful winds, a very strong rotation occurring right here. It's a rotating part of the thunderstorm, and it's under this where the actual tornado develops and where that vortex reaches the ground. Let's check for lofted debris and see if we're still seeing that, Brian. I suspect we are. Oh, yeah, so we've got that here. What's going on down here? We saw very little on the backside as far as the winds, but is that that could be another tornado developing here. Let's investigate that a little bit further. Yeah, looks like we've got another tornado developing. Tornado warning hasn't been issued for this yet, but likely to be because I know that folks at the National Weather Service also monitoring this very carefully. So we've got another tornado developing here in eastern Spalding County. Let's spend a little time investigating that, Brian, and tracking that. Right here within this line, we've seen the rotation starting to develop, the green and the red, but importantly, we saw an indication of some debris being lofted as this is tracking towards the east. So there's Wani Road, Mangham Road, Harkness Road, Caldwell Road. So these areas here in eastern Spalding County, there's lofted debris. And let me look closely here. This is Arthur K. Bolton Parkway. That's the main road here in eastern Spalding County. And we have an indication now of another tornado that's lofted debris being highlighted in this dark blue near Walker Mill and just to the south. There's North McDonough Road. There's East Griffin. So this tornadic thunderstorm has moved east of Griffin in Spalding County. This is a tornado on the ground picking up debris. And by debris, we're talking it could be obviously building materials. It can be parts of buildings. It can be parts of a roof and shingles. It could also be leaves and twigs and branches, grass and dirt being picked up as it goes up into the atmosphere at thousands, potentially tens of thousands of feet. Brian, you got another update?
Yeah, brand new warning, actually, Brad. You were just pointing it out on Storm Tracker 2 HD. National Weather Service has just issued a new tornado warning, includes Butts, Henry, Newton, and Spalding County. So think of this as an extension of the previous tornado warning, and that's going to go now until 5:15. So that's for possibly, and I'm asking the National Weather Service, that new area you were just pointing out.
Yeah, it looks like it. So the folks at the National Weather Service doing a great job, and they're monitoring this, as are we. And they saw what Brian and I saw as well. And we told you about that developing tornado. Well, they saw that as well, and they've issued another tornado warning. So that's what's flashing here. And the purple is another indication, or it's kind of a visual indication that this is a confirmed tornado. Confirmed by radar, meaning we see not only the rotation that indicates a tornado, but we also see the lofted debris. So we know that a tornado has touched down here, has picked debris off the ground, and has lofted it thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of feet. Brian and I were looking earlier at the Storm Tracker 2 in 3D at lofted debris signature of these storms as they were moving in to eastern Alabama and West Georgia. We saw debris over 20, 22, 23,000 feet in the atmosphere. These are powerful tornadoes, and that's what we're looking at here. Debris being lofted thousands of feet into the air. This is eastern Spalding County. There's Locust Grove just to the north. It's going to pass south of Locust Grove, most likely, but it's going to be close, so we're going to keep our eyes on that. Jenkinsburg likely in the path of this, perhaps Jackson and Butts County as well. So this tornado warning now, in effect, it's for this new tornado that's developed in Spalding County, and it includes until 5:15 parts of Butts, Henry, Newton, and Spalding counties as it's tracking towards the north and east. This one moving faster than the others, however, 65-mile-an-hour forward speed with this. So it's approaching Locust Grove and doing so very rapidly. We're doing a storm track here right along the heart, kind of the core of this storm, as it tracks at 60 miles an hour towards the northeast. So heads up, Locust Grove, you've got about 3 minutes from the tornado moving into your area. You need to seek shelter now, lowest level of your house, interior room, away from windows. Jenkinsburg, you only have 4 minutes. Jackson, 7 minutes. Yeah, you're sitting here in Butts County, and we're talking about a tornado in Spalding, but it is moving at 65 miles an hour. This tornado is traveling across the ground at the speed of a car on the interstate, moving into Stark in 11 minutes, Worthville in 14, Prospects 22 minutes, off towards Blackwell in 24 minutes as the storm continues this track towards the northeast. So heads up at Jackson, Stark, Locust Grove, Jenkinsburg. You're in the path of this tornado. You need to seek shelter immediately. This tornado warning in effect until 5:15. So we're going to stay with you here as long as this tornado threat continues. This is the new tornado. There's the lofted debris signature just south of Locust Grove. And if this continues to hold together on its current speed and direction, the worst of the weather, the worst of this tornado likely to pass just south of Locust Grove. But you're in the tornado warning. Go to your safe place. Ride this out over the next few minutes. The yellow on the map, you see all that? Those are damaging straight line winds. Oh, here we go, right along I-75 now, a tornado crossing the interstate in northeastern Spalding County. You can see there that lofted debris signature has moved right over I-75. So here we are, there's Steels Mill, Pleasant Grove. Those of us in Metro Atlanta have traveled up and down the interstate many times. I know you're familiar with this area, even if you don't live here, being impacted by a tornado now, just now crossing the interstate and moving towards the north and east. So that's the rotation and the lofted debris signature there. Let me name some of these streets. Caldwell Road, Barnes Road, High Falls Road, there's West Ball Road, Shiloh Road, looks like Shellnut Road, Locust Road. These roads, I'm indicating these because hopefully it rings a bell for you. If you live near one of these roads, let this be the moment that you go to your safe place. Lowest level of your house, interior room, away from windows. If you don't live here, but you have family or friends that live here or work here, give them a call, send them a text, let them know this tornado is threatening Butts, Henry, Newton, and Spalding counties, although about to move out of Spalding County, this particular tornado, over the next few minutes. Let's go back up a little bit farther to the north, Brian, and just get an update on the additional severe weather threats north of this. We have a big severe thunderstorm warning encompassing this entire South Metro area. The other tornado warning has been allowed to expire. And then the severe thunderstorms starting to move out of the heart of the metro. By that I mean the city of Atlanta and inside the perimeter, but the eastern side of the metro and the suburbs still dealing with these strong and potentially damaging winds right here along the leading edge in particular. So Newton and Rockdale County up to Walton County into Barrow County. This is the area being impacted by winds about 60 miles an hour as they continue to blow in a straight line direction. So those can take down trees and power lines. And these straight line winds can take down large swaths of trees and tree limbs and potentially power lines, where tornado damage obviously can be much more destructive. It is typically confined to a smaller area. This is just a large line of, look at these 60, 70 mile an hour winds rushing through this area. And it doesn't even take a 70-mile-an-hour wind to knock down a tree. We've seen it happen in 40 and 50-mile-an-hour winds. So we're likely to have dozens, if not hundreds, of trees down by the time this moves through the metro area. Look at this, from Walnut Grove, approaching Covington, back towards McDonough and southern Henry County, central Henry County there at the bottom of your screen. These straight-line winds continuing to wreak havoc, knocking out power, taking down trees and tree limbs right here, right along the leading edge of the very heavy rain. The heavy rain lags behind, but from Atlanta back into Cobb County, there's heavy rain, but the wind's not quite as strong there. And then let's go back a little bit farther to the north, because we haven't spent as much time on this because the storms haven't been quite as intense. But I don't want to leave you out of it, because here up towards Jackson County, into Banks, Hall County, still a severe weather threat, especially along the leading edge. So Jefferson, Commerce, and then for those of you watching out towards Watkinsville and Athens, some rain has been moving in. The severe weather has been west of you so far today. It is headed your way over the next few minutes. So heads up in Athens, you want to get inside and get into a safe spot, as damaging straight line winds headed generally in your direction as well. So we continue to watch that. Let's go back down into the South Metro, Brian. I will do this track first. That's fine. Do a track here. We'll give the timeline. We've got plenty of time to get through all of this. But here's the leading edge, and what Brian is showing is the time of arrival as these storms race towards the east. So that's going to put these here into Mount Vernon in about 2 minutes, Allen in 3, Good Hope in 8, Isla in about 11 minutes, and that's about 15 minutes approximately from moving into Athens. Already raining there. That's the time of arrival of the potential damaging wind gusts. Let's go down into the South Metro and take another look at this thunderstorm that's produced tornado and tornado warning. I want to point this out. The central and western part of Spalding County still under a tornado warning. It'll be allowed to expire. The tornado threat has ended west of Spalding County from that storm. The tornado warning continues here, southern Henry and northern Butts County in particular. Locust Grove to Jenkinsburg and also towards Jackson. This entire area has strong winds, and you see kind of a little kink here, perhaps another one right there. This is the area where we have the potential for more wind damage, tornado touchdowns. Receive lofted debris. Look at this, 59, nearly 60 miles an hour, 59-mile-an-hour winds blowing towards the radar site and away from the radar site simultaneously and right next to each other. And that's the indication of this tight rotation, the strong rotation that produces tornado touchdowns. Let's check the lofted debris signature to see if we're seeing any change in that. Well, we're starting to see that dissipate. That's a good sign. We'll go back into time, and you saw that a significant lofted debris, that dark blue, right? Look at that. It goes way back here. We were tracking this. In fact, we picked this out before the tornado warning was even issued. It's come up towards Jenkinsburg, and we still have a little lofted debris signature here near and to the south of Jenkinsburg. Let's check the velocities with that, Brian. But the overall trend has been weakening here. Still some rotation, weakening lofted debris signature. We're actually starting to see the winds picking up, the rotation picking up back towards the north. And so we may be looking at a situation where this tornado is weakening and another one developing simultaneously just back towards the north. But right now, we're watching twin areas of rotation with possible tornado touchdowns. Brian, you got any more information about any damage reports?
Actually, just got a new damage report in Fayetteville, one place where we did have an active tornado warning earlier that has been allowed to expire. Beauregard Street, Grady Avenue, just south of Fayetteville, lots of trees down, power lines down. down there. Spalding County, many spots with power lines down, trees down. East McIntosh Road at Tower Street. In Fayette County, around Trilith Studios, if you're familiar with that area had quite a bit of damage reported earlier, but the latest we're getting now, actually a new report here of some damage in Pike County. These were the spots Brad has been taking you through. Over the last couple of hours, we were initially watching these storms develop out in Alabama, where they have a long history of producing violent long-track tornadoes. And we've tracked this now over the span of the last 3 or 4 hours. So Pike County, severe structural damage to a building along Bethany Road, and a lot of reports like that at this point, Brad. Henry County, a lot of power outages. So the damage reports continue to come in. Now, the latest from the National Weather Service, Brad, and we'll see how this plays out with possibly extending or canceling the tornado warnings. We're going to watch it closely, just like we are, because of the history of these storms, that as of now, and you just showed us on Storm Tracker 2 HD, we're not seeing the signs quite of the lofted debris we were seeing a little earlier. Now, the storms, Brad, as you know, have had a history of weakening and then spinning right back up. We will continue to watch to see if that happens, but right now, not seeing that lofted debris like we were seeing just a few moments ago.
Yeah, and of course, we got a report in Pike County of severe structural damage to a building, and that damage occurred at 4:36. So that was about 8 minutes ago. So that was in Pike County, severe structural damage to a building as that tornado came through at 4:36. Let's spin the clock back on the radar and go back, Brian, 8-10 minutes or so, and we can pick out that area that was impacted. So here we are in, there's Locust Grove, there's Spalding County, just to the north and east. So we've got that area with some lofted debris, and that was in Pike County. So it would have been down here, perhaps, just towards the south. So right as it came through, yeah. So that lofted debris signature is actually a little more significant, a little farther to the north. So nonetheless, we'll continue to watch that. That didn't indicate, that didn't show up as a tornado damage signature. So what occurred in Pike County may have been straight line wind damage. Look at this rotation really picking up now, Brian, across northern Butts County. We've been watching this rotation to the south. That's weakened a bit and then really starting to pick back up towards the north. It's a little more broad than it was, but here we are right around Wolf Creek Road, McMichael's Crossroads up towards Peaksville. This area, we have some significant strong winds with this rotation, and tornadoes may develop within this and damaging straight line winds as it continues towards the track towards the northeast. Now getting reports of major structural damage in Griffin. This occurred at 4:35. This report from a ham operator of a shopping center across from the Walmart in Griffin. Major structural damage to a building in Griffin. That occurred at 4:35, so about 11 minutes ago. That likely could have been some of these trees down can cause some significant straight line wind damage, but when we're talking about major structural damage, that is likely to have occurred from one of these tornadoes. So we're just starting now to get some initial reports on the significant damage that these tornadoes have unfortunately produced, and the threat's not over. We've seen these cycle where they've gone from strong to weaker to strong again. And now we have a new severe thunderstorm warning. That's for Barrow, Clark, Morgan, Newton, Oconee, and Walton County. This particular thunderstorm warning also includes the potential for some tornadoes to develop. So this is a severe thunderstorm warning for damaging straight line winds, but we can watch, or we are going to watch, areas here you kind of see kind of like little bows and inflow notches potentially. We're going to watch these where it's not a straight line, but we've got a little wavy pattern to it. That could be a spot where we could have a little rotation develop. So that's going to be something we're going to be watching as it tracks across the East Metro. But heads up, in Athens, Watkinsville, Monroe, you're under this new severe thunderstorm warning. And there you can see some spots where you've got a little perhaps rotation trying to develop along the leading edge. Nothing that would be indicative of a tornado yet. But look at these winds, 68, 71, 74 miles an hour, straight line winds with this as it continues to track towards the east. So right along the leading edge, damaging winds, taking down trees and power lines. And again, we continue with that tornado warning for that rotation down in Butts County and southern Henry County. Let's go down a little bit farther to the south. So look at this here. Well, let's hold that view for just a minute. I want to show this. This started as kind of more of a line, but we saw the rotation develop, and now we've seen what you can see kind of this little circulation that's developed here. So as you can imagine a linear thunderstorm line, rotation develops, and you kind of get this bending back, and it's back here where that rotation is greatest, where we've had tornado touchdowns confirmed by radar with lofted debris, and we're watching for that continued threat. So where we have the purple on the map, that's an active tornado warning. Tornado warnings historically have been shown in red, but we've added a new tool, and when these tornado warnings are confirmed, we're actually highlighting them in purple. So we have radar confirmation of lofted debris from this tornado as it passed through Butts County, west of Jackson, now north of Jackson. The circulation is more broad. What we're highlighting here is the lofted debris signature, which is not highly concentrated, so it could be a debris field starting to fall out of a thunderstorm, but the rotation there is still fairly intense, so we still have that risk of tornado touchdowns in this area. Tornado warning, that's for Warren County. That's down into middle Georgia, but not for our area. So this tornado warning continues. I want to mention this, though. In Jackson, in Locust Grove, although you're technically under the tornado warning, the threat has passed for you from this storm. The tornado warning has now really moved all the way up into northern Butts and eastern parts of Henry County. McDonough, you're out of the tornado warning completely. It's passing to your east. And then the southern little corner of Newton County under this tornado warning as well, but it's well to the south of Covington, moving towards Worthville, that area being impacted right now in about 2 minutes. Holds together, Prospect in 14 minutes, New Bern 22, Kelly 25 minutes. And then look at this, we're seeing a little bit of a notch here developing along this line in Newton County, south of Covington. We'll watch for that as well. That could be developing into another tornado. Not at this point, but it could develop. That's south of Covington and Porterdale. So we're going to watch that. It's really right along this line. You get this embedded tornado development, and they spin up pretty quickly. So we got to keep monitoring this. And you can see there was no rotation about 10 minutes ago, and then we just started to see a little bit of, subtle, but a little bit of an indication of some rotation developing there south of Porterdale. So we'll keep our eyes on that as well. And then the tornado warning continues for northern Butts, southern Newton, and eastern parts of Henry County remain under that tornado warning. Technically, Spalding County, you're still under the tornado warning because it has been canceled, but the tornado threat has come to an end for Spalding County, so no concern there. You can see when it was issued, it was back here in Spalding County, but it has traveled now across the tornado warning area, and it's now to the north and east. So McDonough, Hampton, Griffin, Jackson, no threat for you from this tornado. It's confined to this area. And we're also watching this rotation south of Covington, where we could see some damaging winds and also the possibility that a tornado could be spinning up there. Let's come in a little bit closer to that storm there and do a storm track south of Covington, just to give folks an early heads up that if this does develop into a tornado, I want you to know how long you have to prepare. As this is tracking with all of them, 45, 50 miles an hour. So that's going to bring it into Lassiter, not the high school in East Cobb. This is Lassiter in Newton County, 2 minutes. Rutledge in 23, Dorsey in 27 minutes off towards the east. So if you're in central and eastern parts of Newton County, you'll be impacted by this storm with the potential for damaging wind gusts and starting to see a little bit of rotation. This is not a tornado. It may develop into one, so I just want to give you an early heads up in this area. And then the tornado warning remains in effect for this segment just to the south in southern Newton, eastern parts of Henry, southeastern Henry, and northern Butts County still under that tornado warning. Brian, we're getting some more damage reports from Griffin Police now.
Yeah, just in from Griffin Police reporting power out for Spalding County 911. That is certainly a concern. Spalding County emergency services are currently down. Again, significant wind damage and possibly a tornado touchdown in Spalding County. Significant damage reported there. So likely some of the causes of some of the issues now happening in Spalding County. 911 emergency services, again, are having some issues again because of all of the wind and damage that we've had. Also some new reports here. Locust Grove, 2,500 customers without power there. I have just asked the National Weather Service, by the way, Brad, about plans to extend the tornado warning to the east. Right now, again, the tornado, the area that we're watching for some circulation that has had a history of producing a tornado, it's moving out of Butts County, moving into far south Newton County, which is kind of the edge of the tornado warning. I'm waiting to get some confirmation from the Weather Service about whether there are plans to continue that warning.
And while I was drinking a little bit of water, did you mention the power lines down in Upson County?
I did. Power lines down in Upson County as well. So several spots on the south side with some significant storm damage, be it either from the circulations and the tornado touchdowns or the powerful straight line winds, essentially having the same overall impact and causing significant damage across the south side this afternoon.
Well, generally that's right. And we also have had a couple of initial reports of some severe structural damage, and those likely more significant and caused by some tornadoes. But it doesn't really matter if it's a tree knocked down by a straight line wind or some tornadic winds. A tree down on a home causes serious damage. And that's the big threat for the large swath of these severe thunderstorm warnings. And then we're watching a couple little kinks here in the line where some rotation is occurring and some possible tornado development. So we're watching where we have an active tornado warning. This circulation has broadened a bit, which is a sign of some weakening. But we're watching here south of Covington. Now, look at this. This is the reflectivity on the radar. This is what we normally show you. Light rain in green, moderate rain in yellow, heavier rain in red, and the pink and purple, some spots perhaps of some some hail. But look at this rotation here. Brian's with the telestrator. So as we've been watching for over an hour, this rotation has been increasing and spinning up. So it's kind of wrapping around on itself there. And that's what we're looking at. It's occluding. And then back to the north, we've got a little rotation just starting to develop. So this is on a very mature rotation that is kind of wrapping back around on itself. We call that occluding. And then when that happens, that can cause the overall circulation to broaden and weaken. So that's a promising sign for this area. Threat's not over yet. And then to the north, we're going to watch to see if this actually picks up and strengthens some. So remember, we've been watching multiple tornadoes since they've moved out of eastern Alabama and into west Georgia during the 2 o'clock hour this afternoon. And Brian and I have been on live with you ever since, tracking multiple confirmed tornadoes across the South Metro. And that's what we have now, what's left of this circulation that produced a confirmed tornado. And then we're getting some reports now of some major damage in downtown Griffin and Experiment. Houses damaged and people trapped. Unfortunately, we're getting reports now, major damage in downtown Griffin and the little town of Experiment just to the north, houses damaged and people trapped there. So as we get more information about that, and we will continue to bring that to you, Brian.
And just in, National Weather Service is extending this tornado warning farther to the east, again, given that history of producing tornado touchdowns.
Okay, so that makes sense. So this is the tornado that we've been tracking, one of them, confirmed tornadoes we've been tracking. Notice, though, it's not a purple, but a red, because this is a tornado warning for not a confirmed tornado, but one that is likely to develop as this broad rotation re-strengthens once again as it tracks towards the north and east. So this is a new tornado warning. It includes parts of Butts, Jasper, Morgan, Newton, and Putnam counties until 5:30. This storm is now moving at 55 miles an hour. It's the same tornadic thunderstorm that we've been tracking across Spalding County, the same one that produced the damage I just mentioned around Griffin and Experiment. Unfortunately, I have reports now of major damage, damage to homes, people unfortunately trapped in some homes there in the Griffin area. And this storm continues now tracking towards the north and east. So it's going to continue to move across northern Jasper County, Monticello, just to the north of you, as it continues to track towards the northeast into Madison and Morgan County. This warning currently does not include Eatonton, but it does include this little sliver north of Putnam County and southeastern parts of Newton County there near Covington. So this is moving quick. This is actually sped up a little bit. It is now moving at 50 5 miles an hour. This tornado, or the rotating part of the storm likely to produce a tornado, moving at about 55 miles an hour. So let's do a storm track here. To Prospect in 3 minutes, 2 minutes now, Blackwell in 7, Shady Dale in 13, Pennington 16 minutes from you, Godfrey in 19, and Bethany about 25 minutes from you. No need to panic, but I want to emphasize this is a serious situation with the history of producing some major, significant, and severe damage as it's tracked across, in particular, Spalding County. And I fear we're going to get many additional reports as it's moved off towards the east and northeast, and that potential continues. So no need to panic if you're in the path of this tornado. But what I want you to do is calmly but quickly go to the safe spot in your house. And by that, I mean the lowest level of your house, a basement if you have one, an interior room. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. And then make sure you're away from windows. You want to stay away from broken glass. You can grab shoes and put those on. That's good, because if there is damage and you need to go out afterwards, you don't want to do so in bare feet or socks. If a tornado is bearing down on you, and you can, if you have the time, grab a bicycle helmet or a football helmet, that can add another level of protection. So we'll keep our eyes on this storm as it continues to track towards the north and east. So we're coming up on the top of the hour. This is severe weather coverage, tornado coverage on Channel 2 Action News at 5. We're going to continue to track these storms live through the 5 o'clock newscast and as long as this threat continues. Stay with us right here